Good evening and welcome to another installment, another edition, another episode of the Selection Saturday Kickoff Show brought to you on Facebook and YouTube. Yours truly, Brandon Rutherman, bringing it all to you as we are now on week number 7. A week in which I have started out very, very cold. 1-6. Going into the Friday slate. But the wins will certainly pick up over the weekend. That much I am sure of. More on that later. Right now, before we get to the helmet picks for this week 7, in case you haven't heard, we'll go ahead and drop it for all the first-timers on both YouTube and Facebook. As you know, I started a tradition about a decade and a half ago called the Helmet Tree, which is a celebration of not only the holiday season, but football, college football. The perfect marriage between the bowl season and the holiday season. Well, this year, we have taken things one step further. The Helmet Tree itself, which will have every bowl matchup and a select number of teams from the FCS, among others, namely the service academies who have automatic bids, as well as the very college I work for at Washington and Jefferson. We are also going to have this year, for the first time ever, something that will precede the actual Helmet Tree itself for the bowl season, and that is the very first ever Helmet Tree Whiteout. And what that'll involve is basically schools you know and schools you don't. Schools I've displayed and schools that I haven't. To give you an idea of what we're playing with here, let's see. What can we bestow upon your feasting eyes with? I mean, you could take something as obvious as Nebraska, to something probably a little obscure as, say, maybe... what would be a good one to pick from? Cool. Oh, how about this? Hawaii. Old school Hawaii. The Rainbow Warriors. And my goodness, we even have, let's see, can we find them both? Can I put all three in one hand? Is it possible? Can we find them? See, I wasn't prepared for this. You'll have to bear with me. Oh, never mind finding all three West Virginia white helmets. There's this. You get the gist of what I'm saying, right? There's quite a lot in the box here of the white helmets. So sometime around Thanksgiving, right on up until when bowl season officially begins, December the 16th, we will have the whiteout version of the Helmet Tree for all of you to enjoy for basically what amounts to about a 2-3 week span. So, can't beat that. It was an idea that hit me last night, and I had always wanted to do a whiteout as far as helmet displays go, but having them all in the box is good enough for now. And then last night it finally dawned on me, so why don't you just put them all on the tree? You don't have to put it on for the whole duration of bowl season or the holiday season for that matter. Just have it up for a couple, 2 or 3 weeks, and then you get to the meat and potatoes of why you put the tree up, when you do it, how you do it. You know, you get the gist. So anyway, enough of that. We must get down to the business of picking 32 helmet selections. We're going to start things off with a little Mid-American Conference action coming your way tomorrow. Kent and Eastern Michigan. I want to think it's an easy one, but those of you who have been watching and following the show, you guys know that I have problems picking MAC games, but I'm starting to see the contenders from the pretenders. And I like to think Eastern Michigan falls in line with the contenders slot. So I'm taking them at home over Kent. Ohio State is at Purdue, the Ohio State University, visiting Purdue. For some strange reason, I started having flashbacks to a game. There's actually two games. One won by each team, and one involving a comeback that nobody saw coming. When Craig Krenzel rescued the Buckeyes from the jaws of defeat against the Boilers all those years ago. And there's one other one where, now that I think about it, I'm wrong. I was going to mention Drew Brees and the fact that Purdue beat Notre Dame. So, never mind that. Ohio State's got bigger fish to fry. They get to play Purdue. Next week, they host Penn State, and Penn State gets a cupcake. Something ain't right about that, but nevertheless, got to ride with the Buckeyes. Got to. Next week, though, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Temple in North Texas. This is a hard one here. Both have records that are under 500, but one of them's going to be one step closer to it. And I'm not sure on the records right off the top of my brain, but it's a tough one. I like to think North Texas has a lot more to their team than Temple does. However, in the helmet game, I'm not real crazy about North Texas. But I'm going to go ahead and hold them up here. That's about as good as you're going to get of a shot that doesn't show up well on film a lot of times. Hey, I can see myself through the helmet. Taking North Texas over Temple. I got nothing for you on that one. Now we go to FCS territory. I got a big bone to pick with the rankings, folks. How in the hell is New Hampshire in the top 25 with a 2-3 record? I mean, come on. I mean, what is it? What is it? I can't figure it out. New Hampshire this week is hosting my main man, Mr. Reese Poffenbarger, and Albany's Great Danes. I'm taking Albany because New Hampshire has no business being in the top 25 with a losing record. They're the only ones with a losing record in the top 25. At this point in the year, you don't even belong in it. There's several other teams that are worthy of it. Namely, the next two that I'm going to mention right now, Richmond and Rhode Island. We're off on the road to Rhode Island. Rhode Island at home, coming off of a huge win against their Ivy League arch rival Brown just last week. And I bet you're wondering, are you going to do any Ivy Leaguers? Like Ivy League games? Not this year. Next year, maybe. And if I do, chances are it'll probably be when it comes time for the title game. Let's put it that way. I'm not quite sure how the Ivy League works, but they're the last to come out and the first to go home as far as starting and finishing their seasons. But anyway, we won't bore you with that. Richmond, as I recall, was an FCS playoff team a year ago. Rhode Island missed it, I think, by one game to some degree. Now the tables have turned. Can this be the Rams' year, or can the Spiders find a way to get inside their skin? Not this year. Gonna rock on with the Rams and Rhode Island. Speaking of FCS, the number 4 team in the country in the FCS, the Furman Paladins, have a date with the Samford Bulldogs. No brainer here. I'm going with Furman. Nothing more, nothing less. Elon, the Fighting Musks, or Muskrats. Okay, they're the Phoenix. You guys know this all too well. If you've watched it enough, you know I like to poke fun at Elon Musk. It's not even his university, unlike some people who think they have a university that bears their name. But anyway, Elon, Villanova. Last I checked, Elon at one point was leading the conference, their conference. Now they're on the road against Nova, and if they're still on the perch, they're getting knocked off. May take a couple threes. Okay, that's basketball. We're taking Villanova over Elon. Toledo and Ball State. This is a no-brainer here. Toledo will win this one rather easily, I think, against Ball State. They'll set themselves up for a huge game next week involving a team that they could potentially be playing in the conference title game. And I'll tell you who momentarily. Next on the docket, Navy and Charlotte. Charlotte has only one win. One win. And they're likely going to be left out of the helmet tree party for sure. Navy, meanwhile, gets its automatic bid, as all service academies do, for the helmet tree. You don't have to be ball eligible if you're a service academy. We're putting you on. So we're going with Navy over Charlotte. And if should they win, they'll be at 500 for the year, I do believe. Meanwhile, back to the FCS. Youngstown State and South Dakota. South Dakota, if you will recall, knocked off North Dakota State last week. Now comes that part where did they recover from the hangover, or are they ripe for the picking? And Youngstown State's no pushover either. They're in the conversation. I think, I'm not sure, but I think both of these teams are ranked in the top 25. So yeah, this is a big one. But I'm going to go with South Dakota in what should be a close shave victory at home. And that now leads us to Gardner-Webb and Austin Peay. Finally, I get to pick the Governors. So there you go. I'm picking Austin Peay over Gardner-Webb. I am trying to right the injustice of picking Gardner-Webb over East Carolina a few weeks ago. Austin Peay, if they win, I believe would have, I think, a 4-2 or a 5-2 record. They are on the outskirts of the top 25. They need to win this one just to be in the conversation for at least another week. And, okay, good. Then we have in-state rivals. North Dakota State visiting North Dakota. If there is a time for the Bison to get its act together, it starts this week with your state rivals. It shall be done. Taking the Bison on the road against North Dakota. Cal is at Utah. In Utah, really for me, it was just a matter of deciding which helmet to display, and God knows I got a few of them here. There's at least 5 Utah Utes helmets we have in here, and 2 of them were from the last 2 Rose Bowls, but we don't play with those anymore. Instead, I'm going with the bad boy of the bad boys. The sharp, red, matted Utah Ute helmet, which I know they won't wear, but it's one of my favorites. I have to, at the very least, put it up front for all of you guys to enjoy. So we're taking Utah over Cal. Should be a good one. Back to the FCS for Eastern Illinois and Southeast Missouri State. Eastern Illinois let one get away last week. It won't happen again. Southeast Missouri has only 1 win in their first 5. So if Eastern Illinois tanks this one, their season might be in trouble. I'm going to ride with Eastern Illinois this week. Troy and Army. Army, of course, will be on the tree this year. Troy, meanwhile, I'd imagine is going to scratch and claw and probably find themselves in the conversation for a bowl bid somewhere in that tightly contested Sun Belt Conference where there's no margin of error with the 4 or 5, maybe 6 teams that have a shot at what I think are 4 bowl bids that are available for the conference. So this time around, we're taking Troy on the road against Army. Now we go back to the Mid-American Conference. Bowling Green and Buffalo. Here's Bowling Green in a nutshell. The movie Groundhog Day, I think, definitely is probably a favorite of those that coach and play for Bowling Green. It happened again. It happened again. You come off of a big win, and what do you do the following week after a big win? You flop. You tank it. I don't know who Bowling Green beat last week, because once I get done with a particular week's picks, it's out the window. It's put out the pasture. I don't even concern myself with it unless by a spur of the moment something hits my brain that suggests that I talk about it. But Bowling Green goes to Buffalo. Buffalo needs wins, just as Buffalo does. Or Bowling Green does, rather. Bowling Green needs wins like I need a raise in pay. And much like my raise in pay, it ain't gonna happen. I'm taking Buffalo. I'm not quitting my day job, by the way, just so you know. I'm still in my work clothes, by the way. Can't you tell? I said I was going to wear something different. Yeah, I'm working for Facility Services, which means I'm facilitating my service as a host of the Selection Saturday Kickoff show. And that's all I'm doing for this. Anyway, we're going to stick to the Mid-American Conference. Once again, Central Michigan hosting Akron. Well, the legend lives on from the Chippewa on down of the big lake they call Gitchagumi. I don't think that's the wreck of the Edmund... I can't even say the song title correctly. The wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, penned and sung by the late great Gordon Lightfoot. I just felt the nerve and the need to say Chippewa. So there you go. Going with Central Michigan. Central Michigan, like Buffalo, needs some wins. They got a big one last week. Florida is at South Carolina. And I need to give a special shout out to a new friend that I made on Instagram just yesterday. And she found me rather than the other way around. So I got to give a shout out to Whitney Loggins, who is a huge South Carolina Gamecock fan, which will make this an easy pick, I think. Under normal circumstances, I would take Florida, but Florida has got so many holes in them, it's like Swiss cheese. If you're a Gamecocks fan, it's feast or famine. So here you go, folks. Hope your Cocks win. South Carolina over Florida. I can't believe I just said that. I gotta quit with the wordplay, or I'm gonna fire myself after this is done. Where are we here? Miami of Ohio. That's who I'm going to talk about next. Miami of Ohio is at Western Michigan. This is almost a trap game for Miami of Ohio. But much like Toledo, who they play next week, they're both 5-1. I'd imagine Toledo and Miami of Ohio will get wins to secure their bowl eligibility and helmet tree eligibility. And next week, we could see a preview of the Mid-American Conference title game. But I must point out, Western Michigan, as any MAC team will tell you, any given Tuesday, Wednesday? Thursday? They don't play on Friday. At least I don't think they do. Saturday? Mostly any given Saturdays. And by the time you get to Halloween, it's Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Anything can and usually happens in the Mid-American Conference. But this time around, I am going to ride with the Red Hawks, Ben Roethlisberger University. And oh, by the way, they got a quarterback that might be on the brink of breaking some of Big Ben's records. I don't remember his first name, but his last name's Gabbert, and it rings a bell. Brett Gabbert, I think's his name. And if that name should ring a bell, it should, because his brother Blaine, I think, played, I was going to say Blake Bortles, but that was Central Florida. Blaine Gabbert played at Missouri. There we go. So, there you have it. Gonna ride with the Red Hawks, which now leads us back to the FCS. Fordham and Stony Brook. Fordham's got a 4-2 record. Stony Brook has yet to win a game this year, and they're coming off of a bye week that really was not supposed to happen, but thanks to a mass shooter on the campus of Morgan State, Stony Brook had to cancel their game against them a week ago. So Stony Brook is back at home and about to face Fordham, but unfortunately Stony Brook's run of bad luck, I think, is going to continue. So we're going to go with Fordham over Stony Brook. Meanwhile, back at the MAC, Ohio and Northern Illinois. Ohio is another team that's a must-watch in the MAC. And much like Miami of Ohio and Toledo, they have one loss. And they're going up against a Northern Illinois team that could potentially be a party crasher. I don't know if it's going to happen this week, even if they are playing in DeKalb. I believe it's DeKalb, Illinois, is it not? That's where the campus resides, DeKalb, Illinois. So much for your geography lesson for today. I'm taking the Bobcats at home. And this time we broke out the traditional white ones with the green stripes this time. So it's Ohio over Northern Illinois, which now brings us to UNLV in Nevada. UNLV, let's go Rebels. You win, and you'll put yourself one win closer to possibly gaining bowl eligibility. It'd be cool to put you on the tree, UNLV. Can you do it? Make it happen. San Jose State and New Mexico out in the Mountain West. San Jose State, a huge disappointment this year. They will not be going to a bowl. They're 1-5. And if they do get a win, this would probably be the spot to get it. But I'll tell you this, I like New Mexico for their stadium, where it resides down in Albuquerque. Almost said Las Cruces, but that's New Mexico State. It's a beautiful, what's the word I'm looking for? Beautiful patch of scenery down there in Albuquerque. So I'm going to take the Lobos. I'm going to take New Mexico at home. It's one of the few times out of the year where I could actually take New Mexico in a game and not talk about their stadium a lot. So there you go. I've been saying that a lot, haven't I? Louisiana Monroe and Texas State. Texas State needs, I believe, 2 wins to gain bowl eligibility, and this is a good starting point for them. Going with the Bobcats at home against ULM, which now brings us back to the Mountain West and what should be a dandy. Wyoming and Air Force. Air Force, I believe, is still undefeated at 5-0 with a chance to claim bowl eligibility. They already got the helmetry eligibility, as you know. And why stop there? As much as I'd like to see Wyoming win, I like Air Force that much more. Just for this helmet alone. That's the kicker. Taking Air Force at home. over Wyoming, and should be a good one up there. Arizona. Gee, you know what? Before I go any further here, I forgot to put Ohio State's ranking down on the card. Oh my God. What is it, number 4? It's got to be 4 or 3. It's one of them two. But anyway, we have Washington State, number 19 in the country, against Arizona. Arizona, you had USC right where you wanted them. But again, you score too much and you give up too much. This game will be no different. And much like what I had said earlier about Bowling Green and the whole Groundhog Day thing, I'm anticipating the same thing to happen here. Score a lot, give up a lot. And in that particular instance, I'm taking Washington State. Number 19, Washington State. So we have that. Now we have one of the more trickier matchups of the week. Missouri and number 24, Kentucky. Well, Kentucky lost to Georgia. We kind of figured that was going to happen. Now they get to return home to face an opportunistic Missouri team who also lost their first game, or was it the second game, to LSU last week in one of my big one selections. This is a tricky one here, simply because Missouri's got Brady Cook at quarterback, who's going to be a fixture there for the next couple of years. Then you got Kentucky with Ray Davis and the blue wall that he runs behind. Kentucky, I think, not only are you gaining bowl eligibility, I'm going to put you on the tree again. Going to take the Wildcats at home over the Tigers. Which now brings us to our final two selections. We have UAB and UTSA. I would pick UAB, but now I found out that Trent Dilfer is coaching the Blazers. And he's got to get his anger managed. He's got to take some sort of anger management course. I've seen him yell at high school players. He's yelling at assistant coaches. That was proven. So, if you're going to do that, you get no respect from me. With that being said, I'm taking the Roadrunners at home. UTSA needs to start winning and win now before things get a little too chippy. And finally, for the Nocturnals, I don't know if too many fans across the Pacific stateside, I should say, that stay up all night to watch the Hawaii Rainbows, but they're hosting San Diego State this week. San Diego State, I don't want to say they've been a bit of a disappointment this year, but there's still time to get wins and try to improve your record, maybe even getting a shot at a bowl game down the road. For some strange reason, I got a funny feeling it might come down to the final week of the season before we find out exactly whether or not they're bowl worthy. But anyway, we're going to take the Aztecs. Just want to make sure we show it all off to you. San Diego State on the road while we're all sleeping the night away. And speaking of sleeping the night away, I need to get out of these work clothes, get a shower, and get some sleep myself. So that'll do it for this edition of the Selection Saturday Kickoff Show. Coming up tomorrow morning, the lanyard selections. And in putting those lanyard selections out there, I'm going to put at least 3 teams on full blast. Some of you may already know where I'm going with it. But until then, have yourselves a great one, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Good night.